I I'm always telling people to be careful what they ask for because they just might get it. And I've long taken a degree of satisfaction with the fact that, well, even with people that don't let me in, if I come through the door, I'm gonna no doubt rearrange your furniture. And so, again, I guess turnabout is fair play. We all have to face the fact that there are consequences, especially when it comes to getting our karma comeuppance. Um, the world right now is a pretty bizarre and twisted place. Um, it honestly seems like we've become one great big Jerry Springer show. And that's everywhere. It's not just, the one show. It's like a whole bunch of little shows. It's kind of like the way they used to do the House of Un-American Activities hearings. It wasn't just the big one in Washington. They had them everywhere, from Hollywood to Maine. But what has become of the world? You look at these religious institutions, and you compare what they're doing and what they're putting out to the scriptures that they're supposed to be based on. And well, in the case of certain aspects of evangelical Christianity, it seems like Satan's in the house. We got to be better to each other, and using religion to justify bigotry and hatred seems to go contrary to the spirit that's supposed to be behind it. Now, I realize in the Old Testament, depending on which head of God you're talking about, there's a lot of wrath and vengeance and destruction there. As far as politics go, politics has always been kind of ruthless, and people who are historically illiterate don't understand that there have been times on this planet where things have been a lot worse, like during the times of the Spanish Inquisition. Certainly in the last century, the Red Scare, the show trials, all of this crap. You would think that, we might have progressed a little bit, since then, but, it's no conspiracy at all. The real wealth holders in the world don't want too many people engaged in critical thinking and problem solving, because the problem that they might solve are the wealth holders, in their various incarnations. This country, we've never been a democracy, really. We've always been a republic. And although democracy was certainly alive in areas, New England being one of them. I remember when I was a kid going to a couple of town meetings, and those were really exciting because people were taking an active role in their government. And you go on now to some of the modern things, certainly the internet and social media. Somebody was saying, oh, but there's no fact checking and source checking and all of that. And I was like, you mean it's like what they call journalism now? Journalists used to live by a certain code of ethics. We should all be a little more responsible with what we put out there. I mean, I'm pretty much a one-man show with, my Facebook in particular, which is really more of a magazine than anything else. And I do my best at, checking. I mean, I work really fast on the computer, and there are certain sources that, I use, but every once in a while, I show how naive and gullible I can be. So don't be too hard on yourselves when you blow it. But, it's really, the internet is like the garden of good and evil. It can do tremendous good for people. It can, it can enhance lives. It can make them better. But one of the things that I do worry about is the it desensitizes, people to, face-to-face communication, etc. We become so cocooned in, in our headphones and what we're doing online, and the actual face-to-face social aspects of life are taking a beating. Also, when you have people, in that wormhole of, Game Boys and other video games, you're basically cutting yourself off from the human flow, and I think that's one of the reasons why there's so much apathy. And apathy in the context I'm speaking of comes when there's a lack of empathy. You have, and I don't go along with a lot of this stuff with regard to censorship, and certainly with television. I mean, I don't really watch it, and I'm not saying that to be a snot. I'm just saying I don't watch it. I realize when people are trying to subliminally or hard sell me messages that, quite frankly, I don't want to hear. And it's done all the time. And if you watch, in particular, network, even cable network, you are being hit with all of these different messages that are not necessarily healthy. Human beings are that weird kind of combination. We're resilient, but we're also fragile. And we can be susceptible to breaking when there's an overload, or at the very least crashing. And there's just too much that goes on in the world. Everything from selling us on war to selling us on the nail polish that Kim Kardashian happens to use. Like, who the fuck cares? It's... I mean, I wish in society with regard to that, where you've got Madison Avenue and the fashion companies of the world selling you shit that you don't need, or even worse, shit you don't need that you look ugly in. Some people were not meant to wear baggies, and some people were not meant to wear skinny jeans. And yet, people put themselves in those all the time. We need more style in the world. Start with the basics and improvise, accessorize. Make some magic. Be your own person. Be your authentic self. And I know that's really hard to do. all of our major institutions are trying to, make us these nice little cogs that work perfectly, interacting with everything else so everything else can be exactly the same. It's kind of scary, actually. I remember years ago when black was all the rage, the black shoes, the black suits, and I had not been out to a nightclub in a long time, and a friend of mine brought me to this gay club in New York, and we walked in, and I just saw the way everybody was dressed, and I'm like, my God, it's like we're in China. And yay. I don't always say the most politically correct things, but usually they're astute and right on the money. We've just got so much on the external telling us what to wear, what to eat, how to look, how to have our hair cut, what not to do. And it's kind of ironic, in a society that's supposed to be built on a foundation of personal freedom with responsibility, that there are so many people out there telling us to conform. Kind of runs contrary to it, don't you think? That whole spirit of America. I've reached the point where I look at our elected officials and I kind of look at them as maybe the karma we've got to deal with because, we weren't involved before. I think that's about to change. But I think we're going to have a few more radical lessons to discourage us from our wicked ways of the past where we rest on our laurels. See what happens, They find a way to get you from behind without your permission. Don't get too comfortable. So it's, you go into the external, the environment, and we all know what's being done. Our atmosphere is being polluted. These corporations get away with murder. These very wealthy people get away, quite frankly, with murder sometimes, something that the individual Joe or Josephine is going to do some serious time, if not be put on the hot seat for. In Florida, we used to call the hot seat Old Sparky. And people are looking for their pound of flesh. Somebody must pay. But it's never the wealthy. It's always some schmo. One of the expendable ones. I always have to hold on to hope. I really do, because if I didn't, I'd just give up. I'd say this is too much to deal with. I'm overwhelmed. Screw it all. And I find that as I grow older, I become more stubborn and obstinate in the face of the way the world is, especially when I'm being pushed into something that I don't like. And I am really tired of the bad touch of government. And not that it's ever been a good touch, but at least it was tolerable. And now it's just not. We've got a lot to fix, if it can be fixed at all. And that's really the way we've got to start thinking, and we all eventually have to coexist and get along. People aren't really taking into consideration, in all their anger and everything else, what a divided country we are. And in my lifetime, I've never seen this kind of division, even with the Vietnam War. So, I'm sorry to see so many people suffering out there. We're looking for pragmatic solutions in a time where logic is as foreign as that country that Sarah Palin sees up in Alaska. So anyway, that's my €5 for what it's worth, and I hope everybody is having a great weekend. So sayonara for now. Bye.